Perhaps Abraham expected everything to go well after the birth of Isaac. God had promised to make him a great nation, and Abraham had already waited patiently for several decades to see that promise fulfilled. Finally, Isaac was born, the child who was to be his long-promised heir. But it must have seemed only a few short years after the arrival of Isaac that God made a startling demand upon Abraham, as we'll find out in today's reading. Let's hear Genesis chapter 22, verses 1 to 14.
It happened after these things that God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham. He said, Here I am. He said, Now take your son, your only son, whom you love, even Isaac, and go into the land of Moriah. Offer him therefore a burnt offering on one of the mountains which I will tell you of. Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son. He split the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up, and went to the place of which God had told him. On the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes, and saw the place far off. Abraham said to his young men, Stay here with the donkey. The boy and I will go yonder, we will worship and come back to you. Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering, and laid it on Isaac his son. He took in his hand the fire and the knife. They both went together. Isaac spoke to Abraham his father, and said, My father? He said, Here I am, son. He said, Here is the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? Abraham said, God will provide himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son. So they both went together. They came to the place which God had told him of. Abraham built the altar there, and laid the wood in order, bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar on the wood. Abraham stretched out his hand, and took the knife to kill his son. The angel of Yahweh called out to him out of the sky, and said, Abraham, Abraham. He said, Here I am. He said, Don't lay your hand on the boy, neither do anything to him. For I now know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and he saw that behind him was a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. Abraham went and took the ram, offered him up for a burnt offering instead of his son. Abraham called the name of that place, Yahweh will provide. As it is said to this day, On Yahweh's mountain it will be provided.
Sacrifice Isaac? We aren't told how Abraham felt when he heard those words, but we do know how he responded. He acted in obedience. He set out on the journey and took Isaac to the mountain of which God had told him. Now, as we know from our reading, Abraham did not need to go through with the sacrifice of Isaac, and a substitute was provided. But this event from the life of Abraham points forward to a much greater event that was to occur in the future. While Abraham received back his son because a substitute was provided for him, God made that sacrifice. He gave his son to die on our behalf. Christ was the sacrificial lamb who was not spared by his Father. He paid the debt that we owe because of our sin. We were sinful rebels against the holy God, and Jesus died in our place, giving us his righteousness in the place of our sin. We are now called to trust in his redeeming love. If God made that sacrifice for us, how will he not provide us with everything else that is good for us?